The Green Bay man who stabbed and killed his AA sponsor and his dog will spend the rest of his life in a psychiatric facility. Prosecutors and defense agreeing to that change before today's sentencing hearing. 35-year-old James Dorr originally pleaded guilty to several charges, but was later found not guilty by reason of mental disease or defect. As we've reported, police responded, remember, to the 1500 block of Capitol Drive back in January of 2025 here in Green Bay, finding the victim with multiple stab wounds and the dead dog in a bedroom. Prosecutors say Dorr stabbed that victim 27 times before killing the man's dog. According to the criminal complaint, Dorr had admitted to drinking and using meth that day while he was supposed to be on antipsychotic medication used to treat schizophrenia or bipolar disorder.